Oh, hi, Alan. Come on in.
Hi, Mr. Wizzy.
Hi. Why around over here and look on this screen? What do you see?
Looks like a picture of the Capitol, but something's moving back and forth.
Yes, well, you can't see all the picture at once. Notice that you can see a sort of band here, and then it goes down like this.
Yeah.
And in fact, as a matter of fact, you're not seeing a band at all. But let me stop this, and I'll show you what you're seeing. What you're really seeing is a series of dots. See them? See those dots?
Uh-huh.
Well, later on, you'll find out why I'm projecting these particular dots like this.
Okay.
I have a question for you. In fact, a whole bunch of questions which I'm going to ask you. They're kind of riddles. Here's the first one. See these three things?
Yeah.
Here's a picture of Betty Sue. That's one of the girls who used to come over here and do experiments.
Mm-hmm.
There's a picture. That's one of the things.
Yeah.
Picture of Betty Sue. Here's the second thing. That's a bill. You know,
Yeah?
like you get in the mail.
Oh.
Or you could belong to Book of the Month Club or something, and they'll send you these things all the time.
Yeah.
See, this one has some numbers on it. That's the second thing. First is picture. Second is this. And third is that little bead.
Copy.
Yeah. Now, how could all those three things be alike?
Alike?
Mm-hmm. What is similar about them all? Do you see any similarity?
No, I don't.
Well, actually, they are quite similar. This is a record, isn't it? It's a record of how she looked at that time. This was maybe 5 years ago. This is a record also of either the money that you've charged, you know, or something. It's also, both of these things contain information. The only problem is that this one doesn't look like either a record, nor does it contain information.
No.
It's just a plain ordinary bead.
Uh-huh.
Well, today you and I are going to investigate some of the aspects of what is known as information theory. And information theory says that receive and most information that we store can be broken down into what they call bits. And that's what that bead is. That's a bit. It could whole, it could be a bump, it could be from its background. And that little...
Yeah.
Now, you and I, right now, that doesn't mean anything except
No,
the bead.
not really.
But if you and I agree, that could stand for anything in the whole world. That could stand for the sun. If I say, let's pretend that stands for the sun, the next time I show you that, you'd say, oh, yes, there's the sun. Right?
Yeah.
The symbol for the sun. In other words, this can be a symbol, and we can make it stand for anything. For example, let me show you. Let us say that that's going to stand for a sound.
Okay. Sound.
Yes. Now, that means like this. Dip. That's what that stands for. Now, does that have on any new meaning? The minute you and I agree that it's going to stand for a sound, dip. You don't know Morse code, though, huh?
No, I don't.
Well, that stands for E in Morse code.
Oh.
Now, you see how immediately when we agree that that's now this is not only information, a symbol like the picture and the bill was, but also we could record it. We can put a dot, or we can put something down and it'll stand for E. How about if I put another one? Dip dip. What's that? You know in Morse code? You don't know?
No, I don't.
That's I. 3 is S. 4 is H. And by putting a couple of more down here and grouping them in various ways, we can show a very complex idea. In fact, here's one right here. Look. Here's a letter that a boy sent me one time. And you see, his mother had translated it for him because he wrote it in a special kind of code that is made up of 6 dots.
Yeah.
What is it?
Braille.
Yes, Braille. So you see when I say a bit, how one of those dots is one little bit, and by combining them, see what that says there? It says science secrets.
Secrets.
And he could feel that by running his fingers over there. Yeah? Doesn't mean anything to me and to you because we're not accustomed to reading it. Anyway, now you get the idea that this little dot here can be a bump, like here, or it can be a hole, it can be anything, and that we can agree that it'll stand for anything. Right now, in the case of Braille, they're agreeing that certain combinations stand for letters.
Yeah.
What would happen if instead of having them separated, we now put them together? You know, these are the kind of beads that you
pop them together.
That you can pop together. If we put them together like that, now it's no longer a dot, is it?
No, it isn't.
It could be a line.
Uh-huh.
In fact, if I said that line stands for a sound, you know what it would be? If 1 was a dit,
Yeah.
what's that? If that was a dot, this is a dash.
Dash.
Yes. You know what that stands for? First letter of your name, A.
A?
Yeah, da-da. In fact, if we put the dot over here, it now becomes N. And we take it away entirely, it's T. And by putting other combinations, here this you know, is other Morse code, there's O, for example, 3. But now, when we begin to deal in a series of dots, we can form letters.
Yeah.
That's U, right?
U.
Here's I. And T.
T.
And, you know, X, and we can do all kinds of things.
Z.
In fact, by the time you put together some more lines like this, and some dots, with a combination of lines and dots, you can do a tremendous number of things. You can indicate all kinds of things, and you can make records of them.
Oh, what was that dot?
Well, now watch. Here I have some of these things, some of these dots and lines from everyday life. The symbols, you recognize the symbols immediately, and what I want you to do is tell me what their complex meanings are. There's the first one. What does it mean?
Anything, really.
Doesn't mean anything.
No.
We'd have to agree ahead of time that it was a dot, or, you know, or that it was a something, a noise or something. But as long as we don't agree and I don't tell you what it means, you have no idea what it means. Now I'm going to put a series of things around it, and you have to tell me what it means. Whoops. What does it mean? What does the dot mean now?
Well, now it stands for period. And
No, wait. That's the name of the dot. The dot is no longer a dot, but now it's called a period. It has a new name. But what does that mean? What is its meaning? Before it was just a mark on a piece of paper, but now it has a special meaning. What is the meaning of the period?
Well, it is a sign or a symbol that shows that a group of words before it had a thought and completed that thought.
That dot says all that? Amazing.
Isn't it?
Isn't it? In fact, we have all agreed that when we see that dot, we know that the idea is completed, and so we stop.
Yeah.
Either reading or thinking, and you start a new thought. Well, now, see here, these could be a series of dots, couldn't they?
Yeah.
All right, and they have now indicated that. Now, that's what the dot means now. What does it mean now? Nothing.
Nothing.
But now, what does it mean?
Now it stands decimal point.
What does that mean?
Well, the 2 here represents 2 whole things.
Mm-hmm.
And the little dot there separates the 2 whole things from the 5, and the 5 stands for 5/10 of something.
Amazing. How much? That little dot says all that? Along with the other things around. How about if I have 2 dots?
2?
Yeah. Remember, that could be dip if I turn it sideways.
Yeah.
But if I put some other marks around it, what does it mean?
Well, now it's a color, and it sets off something, and there's something following it.
2 little dots. Says all this to
2
it.
dots.
Yeah. Now, how about this one? Now, remember these beads that were a line. This could be a series of dots, and we could represent it by a line, but ordinarily we forget that, and we just put it into a dot. What does it mean?
Nothing.
Now, what does it mean?
The number 1.
Yeah, and that's a very complex concept, isn't it? 1 of A.
Yeah.
Okay, how about this? You said it meant what? I don't think you can even read. What does it mean now?
Well, now it says Alan.
No, it doesn't.
Well, it stands for the L.
The L. But the L stands for the whatever number of a letter of the alphabet is, and it also stands for the sound that you make when you say something and put the tip of your tongue up against the roof of your mouth. Oh. And that's what that line means. If we turn it like that.
Well, now it stands for a subtraction example.
What does that mean?
Well, over here you have 10 whole things, and here you have 6 whole things.
Mm-hmm.
And the sign represents that you are taking these 6 whole things away from the 10, which leaves 4.
And if you have 2 of those, one on top of the other?
Makes a
equal sign.
Equal sign.
See how complex these ideas are?
Yeah.
But that we've all agreed on ahead of time. What does it mean now?
Now it makes fraction, and it separates the 1 and the 2.
If this was 2 on top and 2 on the bottom, the 2's would have entirely different meaning depending on where the line is, isn't it?
Yes.
2 means 2 units here and 2 halves, 2 parts down there. What if I did it like this? Doesn't mean anything until I put that up there. Then what does it mean?
No, it means either one.
One or the other.
Uh-huh.
So you see that line, or a series of dots, can mean a tremendous number of things if we just agree on it. All those things. Now, let's go back to that original dot and add some lines. You probably never thought of the fact that that dot could also represent a different kind of note than you thought originally.
Music.
Yes, a musical note. And notice, while this represents a dit, it doesn't tell us anything about the frequency. It could be a high note, a low note, anything else. It's just one. But this now can tell us that it's a very definite kind of note, right? In fact, remember when we first began, I said that the dot didn't necessarily have to be a dot on a piece of paper. It could be a hole, it could be a bump, it could be anything that separated it from its surroundings. And we saw that braille was like that. Well, here's a different version of it. Look. See those bumps?
Yeah.
Well, aren't they just like the dots over there, only they happen to be a little different shape?
Uh-huh.
And what do these things stand for? Look. Here, let me hold it up. I put this on a cigar box to try to make the sound louder, but it didn't get too loud, so I'll hold it up here by your ear so that you can hear it at the same time. What are these now? What do these dots mean now?
Playing Happy Birthday.
Now, the series of dots, see that one?
Yeah, they represent tones.
Well, they don't they represent tones at the same time because they are showing various positions along here, and the dots actually make the tones, too, when you turn it. Now, go one step further than this. These dots can also, look. You know what that is?
It looks like a player piano roll.
Yes, a player piano roll. Now, these little tiny dots, see these little dots along in here?
Yeah.
They all mean very specific notes on the piano, don't they?
Uh-huh.
And when air blows through them, why the piano plays. And now we can make a whole series of very complex things by simply rolling the thing and having, pumping away and having a thing do it automatically, and you have a player piano. Well, now, you see, what these are methods of recording sounds. In some cases, the dots and lines were sounds which we said.
Yes.
In other cases, they're sounds which we played, in this case. In fact, if you want to go one step further, look.
Sheet music.
Well, aren't those a series of dots and lines? Just like words?
Yeah.
Aren't they?
Uh-huh.
And you see now, they can
the
say
dots
all dots and lines and various kinds of lines, and they mean very complex things. How long you play the note, what the note is, even the expression that you play, what instrument plays it, all very complex. So the reason I wanted to show you all these things is I wanted you to realize how much information you really get from a series of dots and lines. And the scientists who investigate this information theory, they ask this question of how do we know what we see, and how, if we wanted to record it, what are the fewest number of dots and lines that we could use to record it? Mm-hmm. This is very important when you get to computers, which we'll get to in a minute. So they've devised this system of notating music so that with a minimum number of lines and dots, you could now say all the notes, and in fact, the whole symphony orchestra could be represented all in lines and dots. Now, we've noticed here that a combination of dots and lines could represent something, but the position of the dot alone can mean something. In fact, I have a puzzle for you. Come on over here, I'll show you. You run around over there. See these dots?
Yeah.
Now, we've said that this dot could be a dit, it could be a musical note, it could be a period at the end of a sentence, it could, as long as we both agree. But I'm not going to tell you what they mean, and you have to figure it out now. Aha. Secret code.
Yeah.
What do they mean?
Well, it's a secret code.
A secret code, and I'm not going to tell you. But and notice that the dots don't look like they're in any order. But in order for one dot to mean one thing and another dot to mean something, there must be something different about the dots. You have to put something around them. Remember, we put the words or the fractions, and various things around them. In this case, the thing that's different is the distance from the edge. Notice how far that dot is?
Yeah.
And this dot is closer, and that so that each dot is different as far as its distance is concerned, and that's the thing that gives you the clue. Because I have made up a secret code that works like this. Now, see that dot over there on the edge?
Yeah.
What does that dot stand for?
K.
All right. Right down here, you take that and write down a K. Now, this dot doesn't stand for K at all. Look what it stands for.
E. Why? Well, that's a word. I. S is T Y
Okay, you'll have to wait now because I'm going to run right across it.
P A. He is type. W R I T E and R. Key is typewriter.
Yes, the key is typewriter. You can make up codes like this of your own and have the dots stand for any letter you want. But here's how I made this one. The key is on the typewriter. If you start on the upper left-hand corner, the first key is Q, the first letter.
Yes.
And now if you go right across the top, here's the top row of the typewriter.
Oh.
Then here's the second row, and then there's the third row. And that's how I made up my particular code, so you can run it down like this. And you can make, of course, any combination you want. You can start with A, B, C, you can do Z, you know, go backwards, and make any combination you want. And as long as the two people know what the position is here, why, then the letters can stand for, the dots can stand for anything you want.
That's clever.
Now, in this case, they stood for letters.
Yeah.
They could also stand for numbers. Look. I'll make up another code. There's a pencil for you, and I'll keep this one, because if I put a dot right there and it's in a column with this on the top, what do you think that represents?
The number 1.
Okay, you see those equal signs? Two lines, one on top of the other?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What if I put the dot there?
2.
Now here comes a real tricky one.
The ring.
Great! Careful now.
5.
Very good.
Left one out.
No, it isn't.
Oh, 0.
Yeah. Okay.
7. 15.
Mm-hmm. Now, you notice by any combination of dots that I want, if I put one dot, notice here, or I could put one dot there, what is that? 8, isn't it?
8.
Yeah. So that the position of the dot makes a tremendous difference in the same way as the typewriter code. It made a lot of difference as to which way where you put the dot. This is called the binary code because this is either here or not here. So there was only two positions. Bi, meaning two positions.
Bi.
So now, what would the next number here be, by the way? What is the biggest number we can write?
15.
Yeah. So the next number here would have to be
16.
16. And then the next number would be 32, and then 64, and so forth and so on. And now we're talking, here's where real information theory, really the scientists have been investigating it very thoroughly and have devised this code because they wanted to be able to feed information into a computer. And they realized that a computer can only talk yes or no, you know, on or off.
Mm-hmm.
So they devised this particular kind of code using dots in this case, but they didn't have to use dots. You remember that?
The punch card.
The punch card, yes. And that punch card is a series of dots, and its position along here, in a case, I think in this case it's working in this direction,
Yeah.
that its position will determine what number it is.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you can read the numbers sometimes because they have them on the front here, see?
Yeah.
Some numbers on here. So that's how you can now record all kinds of very complex mathematical information. I have another version here.
Wow.
And the reason I made this big one is because we can actually put this in a homemade computer and see how it works. Not only, do you remember when we were putting down lines and dots over there that we were able to put down combinations and make letters out of it?
Mm-hmm.
We could also have a dot stand for plus, couldn't we?
Yeah.
In fact, one of these dots does stand for plus. Come over here, I'll show you. Right there is the computer. Now, maybe that doesn't look much like a computer, but it's a homemade one that works like this. Look. See, here's a piece of metal down here.
Yeah.
And here are brushes. So current could flow across here, except the card's in the way, so the current can't flow. Then these wires lead over here in various complex things, and finally up here there's some lights.
Mm-hmm.
So if I now turn it on, and now push those so that these three things touch down there on the holes, I now light up the proper lights. And what does it say up here?
It says
7. Okay. Now, those three holes stood for 4, 2, and 1, but this hole over here, we have designed into the computer to say, that's not a number, but that's add, plus. All right? So when we go over there, nothing happened. This is switched over, and various addition or sort of holding devices take over. And now, over here,
7 and 4.
we're going to add 7 and 4, and what do we get?
11.
There. So it worked. Okay, let's try another one.
3.
3 plus
Plus 3 is...
plus 3 is...
It's 6.
Very good. It worked again. Now, notice that I'm doing this very slowly. I can now pick up the speed and go a lot faster, and before you'd even had a chance to read the first number, the computer will have added the second. What? Yeah, see?
Yeah.
Okay, you can pick up the speed again. What? Goes much faster than you.
Yeah. I can't read it.
And of course, I'm going very slowly here. In real computers, they go at high speed, so they can now take the information, record it on a series of dots, be able to manipulate them and do all kinds of things with them. And now, you remember the other thing, we now have seen how that little bead represented information, which we could decide would stand for anything. We also decided we could use it to store something.
Yeah.
We now have seen how this card
Punch card.
was the same idea. Now we have that photograph. Remember that picture of Betty Sue? Well, come on over here. I have a special, remember that projector I was working with when you came in? Well, I have a special way of setting it up. So I want to set the screen up about like that. And you stay out here and look at the screen. And I'm going to change this around now so that we can look at the kind of picture you would see when you look at a newspaper.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to throw it up here on the screen, but I want to focus it first, so I'll put a card up here so you can't see through here, all right? All right. I don't think you'll see much with that. That's exactly what I want. Okay. Now you stand right here and look stay close, so that you look on here real close. And I'm going to pull the card out of the way and turn out the room lights. And I want you to tell me now the sort of thing, what you see. What's that? Series of dots, right?
Yeah.
The same, in other words, as though I'd taken some of those beads and lined them all up and set them on a piece of paper. Or you could make these dots with a pencil, and you could make them with type. Notice there are white spaces, too. And it doesn't mean anything to you?
No.
Well, the reason it doesn't mean anything to you is that you don't see enough of the dots, or you're too close. You're seeing just a few of them. And what I want you to do now, slowly walk backwards and keep your eye right on the screen. Slowly walk backwards now. Slowly walk backwards. Now, what do you see?
Person.
Yes, you see a person. Now, what you were looking at is the picture that you see in an ordinary newspaper. But you're now looking at more normally what you would normally look at it. But really, if you look at it closely, it's made up of a series of dots. And scientists have investigated this too. How many dots do we have to represent a person's face? And they've got it down to, very few. In fact, now slowly walk in again so that you get that close view, and you'll see. Look at that eye, for example, there.
Yeah.
It looked like very definitely like an eye before. And now when you look at it very closely, you see that? It's nothing more than a series of dots, one after the other. So you see that picture of Betty Sue is probably made up of dots too. But next time you look at a newspaper, well, you take a magnifying glass and look at the pictures very closely, and you'll be able to see these little dots. And that we not only the dot represents an eye or part of an eye, but we can record it as an eye too by putting it together. All right. Now let's take a look at that picture of Betty Sue once and see if we can actually see dots.
All right.
All right. Here was the picture I showed you, remember?
Yes.
Like this. And this is an ordinary photographic picture, not one that's reproduced in a newspaper. And I took this a long time ago, so this represents Betty Sue. It's a symbol that stands for her. And it also is a record of her, what she looked like when she was that old.
About 5 years ago.
Yeah. See that eye? Right
right
there?
eye?
That right eye. Yes. Here is a blow-up of her face, and you see that right eye? Can you begin to see the dots now?
Yeah, it's sort of fuzzy.
It's sort of fuzzy.
Yeah.
In fact, here's that right eye again. Look.
Wow, you can really see the dots.
You really see the dots? Now, in this case, the dots are not so sharp. The difference between the dot and the white space next to it is rather fuzzy, and so that it's harder to see. But this is called photographic grain. And really, when you look at a photograph, it's made up of a series of dots also.
Ah, like that one.
Like this one. So you see, even Betty Sue. Now you see how these three things were like? The dot, and the punch card, and the picture of Betty Sue. Now, the next time you look at television, you're also seeing a series of dots. And you remember that thing I was looking at, that picture of the White House?
Yeah.
Let me show you now. I'll set that up. And you will see that also, while it is also made up of a series of dots. This time, however, the dot is moving. So far, all we've talked about is dots that are still.
Yeah.
But this time we're going to have a moving dot.
Okay.
All right, now you know, while I get this set up, I want you to tell me. Now, let me turn it on. And see what I've done is I've taken a record and drilled some holes in it. See it here? Okay. Now, let me get the first hole. Now, if I turn on the lights, and you have to come out over here and look in order to see the picture. Now, you look right there. Okay, now you see nothing?
No.
Okay, now wait a minute. Someplace in here there's a dot. You see that dot?
Yeah.
If I can get that dot to go across and give information here, 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 and here, why then I can record it just like those pictures on the dot that you saw. Now I can have another series of dots going across here. And you now see we can make a dot mean anything we want. All right, let's have a dot moving, giving us information, and watch what you'll see. And now a moving dot not only can give us one picture, but a second. And so we can have things like television or motion picture.